As we enter into week 4, we'll be moving on to the next deliverable in your research toolbox, the annotated bibliography. There will be a handful of other small assignments during week 4 that you'll complete under our weekly course tab on Blackboard, but for the most part, your main assignment is going to be this annotated bibliography. And the annotated bibliography will contain 6 sources that all need to come from scholarly articles, studies, or journals found through the Ole Miss Library database, and should be related to your academic discipline and to your approved research question. There is a PowerPoint underneath the Week 4 tab that you can look at about evaluating sources, so I won't talk about that too much, but what I will go through this for just a few minutes today is to talk about the steps that you need to contain within the actual annotation for your annotated bibliography. So each annotation should have 3 parts. You're going to have to start by giving you the correct citation for your source. That'll be either an APA, MLA, or CMS or other style guide used in your field for your academic discipline. This will also be the same style guide you will use for your final paper, so make sure you choose the correct one. Then what we'll talk about in depth here is composing a half-page rhetorical précis for each source. Being sure to state the relevance of your source to your project. You have to list some quotations with page numbers or hyperlinks that you want to use in your paper. And finally, you're going to have to evaluate and contextualize the source. This section should primarily be critical and analytical, not summary. So it's very personalized to you, and consider these following questions as help. Why does the source matter to your research project? What are the methods of the source? What are some weaknesses and strengths within the source too, or the author's positions? You might talk about his ethos, his credibility, or her ethos or her credibility. And what part of the source is most useful to you? And of course, how does the source integrate itself, have a conversation with other sources? So it's not as simple as just writing a short little paragraph for each source. You're going to have to complete a certain number of steps to do this. What we'll talk about here today is the half-page rhetorical précis. And there's a PowerPoint I'm going to go over. It's underneath the Week 4 tab, but I just kind of want to walk you through this step by step. And we'll start back here from the beginning of it. Okay, so what is a rhetorical précis and why is it important to you? Well, it really is a highly structured 4-sentence paragraph that records the essential elements of a unit of spoken or written discourse. And each sentence requires its own specific information conveyed to your audience. First sentence is going to be the what. It will be a single coherent sentence giving you some of the following information: the author, the title of the work, the source, the date in parentheses. You'll use a signal phrase verb such as asserts, argues, refutes, proves, explains, and then a clause containing the major claim, the thesis of the work. So what that work is about, what its overall purpose is what your first sentence is going to be. And these are going to be fairly lengthy sentences. They're not going to be short little declarative sentences. They're going to be fairly lengthy, and we'll show you an example at the end of the PowerPoint. After that sentence, you'll go into the how. In single coherent sentence, give an explanation of how the writer develops and supports the major claim of the thesis. So how are they actually going about to do this? You can't simply say that they have an idea. You have to show how they're going to achieve this within their source, or how they achieve this within their source. Go into the why. Also, single statement of the author's purpose followed by an in order to phase. So why are they doing this? What's the purpose of it to their academic discipline? Are they trying to persuade an audience? Are they trying to just give them information? Or are they trying to explore a source? You need to organize why that is important. And the final sentence is the who. So who is the audience for this intended audience, and the relationship the author establishes with that audience too, which is very important. So those 4 key steps are what go into a rhetorical précis for a format to actually work. And there's an example that talks about this step by step, and this just gives you an idea of how lengthy the sentences should be for the most part. And again, it's just an example that was taken from, I believe, the University of Oregon, their Writing Center website. But it says bell hooks are an essay, women who write too much from remembered rapture. This is, of course, the first sentence suggests that all dissonance writers, particularly black female writers, face enormous time pressures, for if they are not prodigious, they are never noticed by mainstream publishers. So that gives you the information of who the author is, why they're writing this, what their thesis is for it as well. Then you go into the second sentence, and it says, of course, how she's doing this. She supports her position by describing her early writing experiences that taught her not to be afraid of the writing process, by explaining her motives for the writing, which include political activism, by affirming her argument, stressing that people must strategically schedule their writing and make much of that time. Of course, this author's integrating quotations there. They need to include the page numbers to be complete, but that's essentially the actual model you guys should be following with your own annotation as well, is to integrate those types of sources in there. And since three, her two-pronged purpose is to respond to critics and to encourage minority writers to develop her own voice. That's saying why it's basically important to it. And of course, the fourth sentence, although at times her writing seems almost didactic, Hooks ultimately establishes a companionable relationship with her audience of both critics and women who seek to improve the effectiveness of her own writing. And this, of course, speaks to the audience. So for each one of your 6 sources, you're going to have to do this for the actual rhetorical précis, but that's, of course, not all you're going to have to do. And that is what is a little bit complex about this assignment. After you do that, you'll then have to go into, of course, evaluating and contextualizing the source, as we discussed before. So that is the basic overview of the assignment for your annotated bibliography. And there are quite a few resources underneath our week 4 tab that are designed to help you. We have library research guides set up and how to actually use the articles in the database. There's short little videos that will help you with it as well. You can also go back through and go through the library, searching through our course guide, which I'll put up here under the week 4 tab as well. There are 2 student samples. These are by no means examples of perfect ones, but and they should only really be viewed as drafts that successfully complete the assignment, not necessarily making an A. Some of them have issues about integrating quotations and actually making a rhetorical précis very straightforward with it as well. But that is the basic overview for week 4 and the annotated bibliography. We're moving forward into week 5, which is our stretch week, which we will not have class because the university is closed for our summer break. However, what I do during this time is I give you guys the option of revising major coursework that you'd like to submit for a better grade. And that information will also be underneath week 4, or more than likely will be under here, one of our revision column tabs. You're not going to revise your formal proposal because you'll actually do that for Unit 3, but your revisions options will be for the annotated bibliography and also for your Finding Your Academic Voice essay. And those, like I said before, will have a little bit more information put up on Blackboard at that time. As before, try not to fall behind on your coursework. Many of you are doing a good job with the reading journals and the discussion forums, though some of you are waiting to the last minute to actually kind of jump into the discussion, and that doesn't leave a lot of time for people to actually start thinking about their research question or anything else within our discussion forum. So just make sure that you're keeping up with the coursework and budgeting your time properly. As before, if you have questions, please send me an email, and we'll move on from there.